All right, let's jump right into this explainer because today we are unpacking a true story that plays out exactly like a primetime teleserie. Seriously, we are talking about a classic tale of hard work, an absolutely shocking village betrayal, and one man's epic comeback. This is the story of Lee Funo. He's an agricultural grad who took the ultimate rejection from his own barangay, and instead of just getting mad, he used it to build a literal agricultural empire. It's got the drama, it's got top-tier business strategy, and it is just endlessly fascinating.
So let's dive into this by asking a pretty straightforward question. Is a tiny 3-cent commission actually worth destroying an entire community over? Because right at the heart of our story today is honestly the ultimate example of crab mentality. Just imagine doing all the heavy lifting to save your neighbors from poverty, only for them to pull you completely down over 3 literal pennies. It sounds wild, I know, but that is exactly what happened.
And the stakes of that betrayal? They were massive. That exact display of crab mentality ended up birthing a multi-million-dollar Pakwan, or watermelon empire, that is now valued at over $100 million. Lee Funo basically took the bitter taste of total rejection and turned it into this incredibly sweet, highly lucrative global business. So let's look at exactly how he pulled this off.
Part 1. The 3-cent Chismis. Okay, so our story kicks off in Wangwu Village. This was an agricultural community really struggling to sell their seasonal Pakwan. Lee, being an agricultural graduate, stepped up to help his barangay out. But then enter Baishi. She is the ultimate Filingera daughter of Captain B, the village chief. One day, she secretly follows Lee to the city and sees him negotiating prices with buyers. She literally runs back and sparks this massive chismis, telling the entire village that Lee was pocketing an extra 3 cents per pound. She paints him as this greedy villain, stealing the village's blood, sweat, and tears. And the village? They instantly turned on him.
But here's what the village completely ignored. They totally overlooked the massive hidden costs of agricultural supply chains. Lee wasn't just sitting back relaxing. He was traveling all across the province. He was paying for client dinners, covering hotel stays, bus tickets, and even shelling out his own money for under-the-table kickback demands from aggressive buyers. That measly 3 cents barely even covered his out-of-pocket marketing and distribution expenses. Expenses that, by the way, he had initially funded with thousands from his own personal savings.
But of course, the village didn't care about logistics or fairness. Lee's life unraveled incredibly fast as their utang no lob, that deep debt of gratitude they owed him for saving their crops, morphed into weaponized entitlement. Within days, under intense pressure, Lee and his family were actually forced to sell their truck and refund all those quote-unquote commissions to the village. And it gets worse. Weeks later, the villagers went a step further and signed a petition reporting a side hustle to his corporate bosses. Facing an investigation, Lee hit rock bottom and ultimately just quit his day job.
Part 2. Pabida meets reality.
So, with Lee completely out of the picture, Baishi eagerly takes center stage. In a classic Bida moment, acting like she knew absolutely everything about running a business, she makes this incredibly arrogant promise to the village. She says, "If Lee Funo can sell those melons, then so can I." She guaranteed that no one would lose a single dime. And man, that completely set her up for a catastrophic collision with the real market.
Because as she quickly learned, city buyers wouldn't even give her the time of day. They offered her incredibly lowball prices because she literally had zero negotiation skills. Desperate to save face, she pivots to live selling, and it was a total disaster. She hired village girls to dance to get views, and sure, they peaked at 3,000 viewers, but the second the actual watermelons appeared on screen, everyone vanished. The result was absolutely zero actual sales. To make matters even worse, the girls started wearing less and less to grab attention, which ultimately led to their account getting permanently banned. Turns out, flashy marketing simply cannot replace actual supply chain logistics.
Part 3. Karma and the Baguio.
Just as the village was realizing Baishi had completely failed them, a massive cold front and unprecedented rainfall hit the region, delivering some seriously devastating karma. On one hand, you have the barangay's entire unharvested crop sitting submerged in 2 feet of water, just rotting and totally worthless. But on the other hand, Lee, who had quietly kept working on his own family's land, had shifted to climate-controlled agriculture. His premium harvest was completely safe inside his newly built greenhouses, and it was already fully contracted to buyers.
Part 4. Rise of the Pakwan King.
Now this is where Lee initiates his epic Barankawi, his big comeback. Instead of just gloating, he used his university degree to actually outsmart traditional farming methods. Think about it. The barangay was doing 1 seasonal crop a year, completely at the mercy of the weather. Lee, meanwhile, built greenhouses, bumped his production to 4 crops a year, and introduced premium, rare, off-season varieties. He essentially bulletproofed his entire business against both the unpredictable weather and the highly saturated summer market.
And his dedication to research and development didn't just protect his crops, it absolutely supercharged them. In a single year, through relentless experimentation with new seeds and fertilizers, Lee boosted his crop yield by a staggering 50%. This massive leap in productivity is what launched his wealth, making his family more money in that one year than they had in the entire previous decade.
But Lee's true genius wasn't just in growing Pakwan, it was his bumper harvest strategy. See, he achieved a total monopoly over the winter and spring watermelon markets. But instead of jacking up the prices like most people would, he practiced market expansion. He actively lowered prices on his high-yield products to drive massive consumer demand. He chose long-term business longevity and market accessibility over short-term greed. Pretty soon, his affordable melons replaced expensive luxury ones everywhere, turning his farm into a 20,000-acre industrial park that exports to over 100 countries.
Part 5. The Teleserye Ending.
So for our final act of poetic justice, as Lee's empire grew, he ended up getting married. Holding his wedding back in Wangwu village out of rural tradition, the entire barangay showed up, but in a display of ultimate pettiness. Instead of the standard $200 wedding gift, entire families brought an ambag, or contribution, of exactly $20 per household. Like 7, 8, 10 people per family would show up, drop $20, and act like ultimate Sharonians, eating everything in sight, chain smoking, and wrapping up all the leftover food to take home without even uttering a single congratulations to the guy.
But you know what? The true mic drop didn't actually happen at the wedding. Years later, Lee was interviewed by national media at his massive industrial park. When reporters asked why his home village wasn't a part of his empire, Lee literally took them to the abandoned, weed-choked fields of Wangwu. Kapitan B, the village chief, tried to pitch the reporters to help sell their non-existent crops, but a visiting reporter brutally gave him a reality check on basic economics, straight up asking, in the real world of sales today, a salesperson would expect a 20% commission. Do you still think that the measly 3 cents was him taking advantage of you? Boom, caught on national television.
After that news segment aired, the village went totally viral for all the wrong reasons. The public shame was just too much for them to handle, and this led to the grand resolution. Over 1,000 villagers marched to Lee's research lab. Kapitan B and the entire village bowed deeply in a formal apology. And then, the ultimate closure. They brought forward a heavy crate filled with the exact cash they had forced Lee to refund all those years ago. They finally acknowledged their catastrophic mistake and admitted they were the ones who failed him.
It's an incredibly satisfying ending, for sure, but it does leave us with this final, profound question to think about. They apologized when he became a multimillionaire, but would they have ever apologized if he had stayed poor? If he hadn't succeeded, would they still hold that grudge over 3 cents? It really makes you think about human nature, the true cost of crab mentality, and how sometimes massive success really is the absolute best revenge. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you on the next one.